Prem Kishore asked a question, and if we go up on the chat, I think we can actually find the question. And I took a particular angle of vision to answer the question. And it's not the only angle of vision. We were talking about humility, thinking yourself lowly, thinking others better than you. You know, that as a foundational definition of humility. That when you have it, then you think everyone is better, and you think you're very low, and you think that you have, I've been taking lots of rest. I don't need any more. I'm actually wide awake. So, Rasika was saying, take more rest. So, Prem Kishore says, this is difficult for me because to be successful in the material world, we reflect, I've achieved this, I've achieved that, whether in sports, job, etc. I'm making progress, I'm now here because I've done this. And having the realization that doing more service doesn't make me more advanced. But it seems, I was thinking, I'm not a devotee, I'm not a Vaishnava, seems to be a path of frustration and depression. So we were addressing the last point, that thinking, I'm not a devotee, I'm not a Vaishnava, seems to be a path to frustration and depression. And I was prompted by the statement that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that advanced devotee will never think that they're a devotee. Because devotee, in this definition, would mean I have love of Krishna. So they wouldn't think they have love of Krishna. That would be proud, to think that I actually love Krishna. So they would think, I don't actually love Krishna. And we gave the example of Mahaprabhu, and he said, if I actually love Krishna, then why would I even live in this world and maintain my body? But I would die out of separation. So the proof I don't have love of Krishna is I'm alive. I would have died out of separation. So then Prem Kishore is saying, but to think that way seems like it would be frustrating and depressing. In his words, path of frustration and depression. And so I was making the point that this is how the pure devotees think, and this is what we have to understand humility to be. And after I ended the class, I wasn't satisfied because I purposely was taking one angle of vision, and I understand Prem Kishore's question and the consciousness that we all have that would make us ask that question, but I wanted to take another angle of vision. And one of the things that I wanted to point out, maybe I didn't point it out clearly, maybe I didn't even point it out at all, but I want to point it out now, is that it seems that when we speak of humility, our definitions, number one, and number two, our experience of those definitions, of what our realization of what is humility to us in our stage, is different from the way it's understood and experienced in the state of pure devotional service. So just like a ordinary person who doesn't know anything about Krishna consciousness, if you say, you really be happy if you give up alcohol and drugs and meat and illicit sex and rise early in the morning and chant Hare Krishna for 2 hours. That sounds miserable to them because in their consciousness all those things are enjoyable. So for us, honor, appreciation is enjoyable. And if we say, you should think that everyone's better than you and you have no good qualities, then we look at that and think, well, if I thought like that, I would become depressed and I wouldn't have any motivation to do anything, because at least from the material point of view, motivation often comes from thinking oneself qualified. Well, I have self-confidence. Why do I have self-confidence? Because I'm confident in my abilities, I'm confident in my intelligence, confident in something I have. And if you strip me of that confidence, then I'll just become depressed, frustrated, I won't be successful. Which is true, because we do need to have some confidence. But we have to define self-confidence, we have to define humility, we have to define thinking ourselves unworthy in a more transcendental sense, because we discussed also that frustration and depression is not part of Krishna consciousness, and therefore any pure devotee who's exhibiting symptoms of great humility is not depressed, but actually they're ecstatic. So one of the points that I was making last week, I believe I was making last week, is that there's an ecstasy in feeling insignificant. Just like there's a material happiness in feeling honored. Like if a lot of people honor us, or a lot of people appreciate us, we feel good. We feel valued. We feel encouraged. But on a high level of Krishna consciousness, like we have the example, what's the example? Who was it? I think it may have been Rupa Goswami or one of the Goswamis. They said you could describe what I do or my activities in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but don't mention my name. So if his actions can inspire others, he's happy, but he's not happy if his name is mentioned, then he gets the credit. He'll become honored. Or sometimes pure devotees will try to hide their qualities or in some way prevent situations in which they could be honored. But that's their happiness. And for us, it's kind of the opposite. I mean, we might try to do that, but it won't make us so happy. I don't want to get the honor. But really, if we get the honor, we're happy, because we're conditioned souls. So in Prem Kishore's question, if I feel myself lowly, if I feel myself without qualification, wretched, and so forth, as we hear pure devotees speak, won't I just become depressed and frustrated? And the answer is, if our definition and experience of humility is different from those on the level of pure devotional service, then yes, you might become depressed and frustrated. But it's only because you're seeing it materially. And then you might say, well, can I see or experience it any other way if I'm a conditioned soul on a very low level of Krishna consciousness? And the answer is yes and no. So I want to first deal with the yes part of the answer, which is what I was dealing with yesterday. I'm telling somebody there's class now. So I want to continue on this theme of the definition of humility. It's something we may misunderstand. Just like in our forgiveness workshop, those of you who have taken the forgiveness workshop, a problem comes up and someone says, if I forgive this person, they'll take advantage of me. So I don't think I should forgive them. So in the same way, people will say, if I'm humble, people will take advantage of me. And so then I explain that forgiveness doesn't mean that someone has to take advantage of you. Forgiveness means you remove the anger, the resentment, the revenge from your heart. And now how you deal with that person, the boundaries you create within that relationship, must reflect a principle, most important principle of surrender, which is accept everything which is favorable and reject everything which is unfavorable. So let's say in a relationship it's abusive or extremely disturbing, frustrating, agitating, whatever it is. It may be necessary, because I'm not advanced enough to be able to live or deal compatibly with that person and not be affected. It may be necessary to distance myself. But still, I should forgive them. I should allow all that resentment to go, because that's a spiritual principle. It's a spiritual action. That's an action of pure devotional service, that I have no hatred to anyone. We shouldn't hate anyone. But whether I want to be close with that person or work with them, it may not be suitable in my present condition. It may never be suitable for one reason or another. So we distinguish those two actions. One, the action of letting go of any revenge, and the other action of being close or working closely with the person. So the same way, someone who's humble doesn't necessarily have to be a pushover or someone who is taken advantage of. And one example of this, the Prabhupada said something, it's kind of funny. He didn't mean it to be funny, but in this context. But it's kind of funny, where he said, if another devotee is being harmed, then we should become angry and defend him. And he said, that's not a place for being meek and humble. Okay? So if you have difficulty being humble, at least in situations where you can defend devotees, you don't have to worry about being humble, then you defend them. Or defend Krishna, as Prabhupada said. Anger can be used for Krishna. So what's the anger used for? Against people who are blaspheming Krishna, or against people who are trying to deny God's existence. Particularly Mayavadis, Prabhupada said. You can be angry. You should use your anger. So that anger is now employed in Krishna's service. It's not material anger. So Prabhupada says, the humility and meekness where you just let everything happen, you don't do that when a devotee is being harmed or Krishna's movement is being disturbed. Then you act, as Prabhupada did. He'll take on any challenge, or we'll go to court over some lawsuit where they're trying to stop our preaching, and then we'll fight it. So can you fight it and still be humble, just like Kus is saying? So it's fine to keep a distance. Can you be forgiving and keep a distance? Yes. You can be forgiving and keep a distance, because you have no enmity towards that person, but you realize the relationship is unsavory, and it's probably always going to be that way for whatever reason. So in your heart you have no resentment, but you keep a distance. So can I act very boldly and still be humble? Yes. Can I have a lot of self-confidence and still be humble? Yes. Can I be a powerful, successful person and still be humble? Yes. And in one sense the answer is it's the only way you'll ultimately be successful and powerful. Materially, it seems the opposite. I know I have to step on people's toes. That there's an interesting principle, at least this is a principle I've observed in my life, and I think we could safely say this is a law. This is how things work, or they work often this way. And that's when you have a certain paradigm. Within the paradigm, you do things a certain way. So let's say the paradigm, you keep a distance. You don't want to cause a disturbance for them or for you. Or it goes back to the principle. You keep a distance because you want to do what's favorable for your bhakti, and you want to avoid what's not favorable. So if getting too close to someone always creates a problem, then you keep a distance. Of course, it's a problem if you're married to them. But I'm talking about, if you're married, you have to work it out. But I'm talking in general, if somehow or other you can't work it out, or it's just the chemistry doesn't work, then you have no enmity, but you keep a distance. That's what you have to do. It's just Prabhupada separated leaders from one another because they couldn't work together. So one of the things I've noticed is that if we operate through a certain paradigm, a certain belief, and let's say in this case the belief would be that if you're humble you'll fail, you won't be successful, people will push you over. Kush, I can't ask the question now because I got to focus on this. But you can figure out the answer. Do what's favorable for your bhakti and avoid what's unfavorable. That's the principle. And then within that principle, try to figure out how to act in a way which will be favorable for your bhakti. Yeah. But that's a general answer. And then with that general answer, you know, so maybe getting close to that person, I have to learn how to do it in a way which is not disturbing because I want the association with other devotees, and that would be more advantageous in the long run. I think that's true for a lot of devotees. There are many devotees that struggle to stay within ISKCON because of certain problems that they feel are unconscionable in some cases, or things that have happened that disturb them, and they have to find, because they know this is what Prabhupada wants, and they want the Sangha of so many wonderful devotees, and not everything is bad, and so they have to work through that. We all have to work through that. So, going back to this example, let's say from the material perspective, we say if you're humble, you get walked over. So then, point one would be, what are you defining as humility? Why do you think you'll get walked over? So your definition of humility is not going to be the same as the definition we give in Krishna consciousness. Because your definition will be, humility means, to take a back seat, not complain, put people in front of you, and so forth. And so if I do that, then I'll fail materially. My competition will walk all over me, people will take advantage of me, and so forth. So it's a certain paradigm. So when you have that paradigm with those definitions, then you have to act in a certain way to be successful, because within that paradigm, success will only be defined in one way. So my point is, when you have a certain paradigm, for you, success can only happen one way within that paradigm. But if you had another paradigm, let's say another paradigm is that the humble people will be the most successful. I mean, Jesus said there will be the last will be first in the kingdom of God. And we say, the more you're a servant of the servant, the closer you are to Krishna. And then I like to use the example of Srila Prabhupada, who was, from the material point of view, extremely successful. And from the spiritual perspective, the most humble. And so he always felt himself helpless as a devotee, not qualified, and always depended fully on Krishna, and Krishna empowered him. So the humble would get the empowerment, but you couldn't walk over Prabhupada. He wouldn't allow that. I mean, in certain cases, there's proper Vaishnava etiquette and so forth, so he's not going to fight back. People would challenge sometimes. He would be very bold sometimes. He would just listen, very quietly, humbly, let them talk. And then when they're finished, then he would respond to all their arguments in a nice way, not out of enmity, but as a humble servant of Krishna. So within the transcendental paradigm, we would say, unless you're humble, you won't be successful. Within the material paradigm, you would say, unless you're proud, unless you're forceful, you won't be successful. So it's redefining paradigms, because humility means, materially it means at least being in Sattva Guna. In Sattva Guna you'll be more successful than in Raja Guna. Right? You will be. So any quality which you can manifest in Sattva Guna will bring you a greater result. So then it's just a question of practically how you manifest those qualities. So I don't think we should make the assumption that if I'm humble, I won't have any self-confidence. Because if you define humility in the transcendental way, then you could say humility means being empowered by Krishna. It means being humble enough to realize that whatever I do as an instrument. So humility means being an instrument. And as an instrument, then of Krishna, wouldn't you even be more self-confident? So that Krishna is empowering me. I don't know how to do this so well, but Krishna is empowering me. So my confidence is coming as being empowered by him, as Krishna giving me, I have faith Krishna will give me ability. You see? So yes, a humble person will be self-confident, very self-confident. Krishna's telling Arjuna, fight and I'll kill them all. Don't worry. So then, eventually Arjuna, he fought valiantly and he won. And it's not because he became proud that he won, right? No, it's that he surrendered to Krishna's instruction and became an instrument. That's why he won the battle. As Krishna said, I've already done it, so now you just have to carry it out. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's clear. So now let's go to the depression part of it. Well, if I think I'm the lowest, then I'll be depressed. After I gave the class on Monday night, I was thinking, meditating, that probably one of the highest ecstasies is humility. But we, in our material condition, think it's agony. Isn't it? I'll feel the most fallen, the most wretched. I'll see everyone is better than me, and I'll just be depressed. I'm the lowest, I'm the worst, I have no good qualities. That's how we see it, from the material perspective. Right? You understand? So then the question comes up. How? I'm just looking on Krishna.com to see who's here. Radha Gopinath, Lithuania, Prakash and Karuna, Haribol, Venurati. This one devotee said he was joining. I don't see him. So then, the principle is. Venurati's on Skype now. There's just too many people. Just can't ask any questions on chat. So you can ask questions on chat if you go to Mayapur TV, and then Guru Nishta can send them over if you sign up on. So then we have to take the principle that we understand. The pure devotees are saying, "Oh, I'm lower than worm and stool." Right? Okay. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, "I have no good qualities." Narottam Das Thakur says, "I'm the most fallen, therefore my claim to your mercy, Mahaprabhu, is first, because you've come to save the most fallen." So we're looking at that, and we're kind of going, duh, what's that all about? Right? Because it's beyond we don't think that way, because we're not pure devotees. We think, if I get some appreciation, I'm happy. If I get some honor, I'm happy. So when they say these things, we read them and think, if I thought like that, it would simply be a manifestation of some psychological dysfunction in my life, which is true. It would be, until we're on an advanced level of Krishna consciousness. If we think that way, it would be probably some psychological dysfunction, or if it's not, it would make us psychologically dysfunctional if we think about it too much, because we don't understand it, we don't relate to it. And as all of you know, I've talked about this before, to not imitate stages of humility we don't have. And I'm going to talk about it soon, but I'm taking the other perspective now, because I haven't really spoken about the other perspective in detail. And so how do we understand this? Well, the first thing is, when we see a pure devotee speaking that way, we understand they're pure devotees, and they're experiencing a very high level of taste of Krishna consciousness, and they're not experiencing any form of influence of the material modes of nature. And depression is caused by the mode of ignorance. So obviously they're not in the mode of ignorance, they're transcendental, not even influenced by sattva gun, but vishuddha sattva. They're transcendental to the three modes of nature. So then we have to at least make an assumption, a theoretical understanding, that they're in ecstasy, that these feelings, these lowly feelings, are both symptoms of ecstasy and also cause more ecstasy. So that's the assumption we have to make. So then we have the statement of, we have the principle that when you feel lowly like this, it's actually the highest ecstasy. And Mahaprabhu, in reciting the Trinadapi Sunicena verse, he's feeling ecstasy in reciting that. Now, how do we understand it? Well, we can understand it materially from a few points of view. If you think others are better than you, and you think everyone's better than you, you'll appreciate everyone. You'll respect everyone. So now let's just imagine for a moment, today, every person you met, you appreciated. You don't necessarily have to say to them that you appreciate them, but you just look at them and you appreciate them. You for whatever. You see Krishna in their heart, and you appreciate that. You see them as spiritual beings, you appreciate that. You appreciate that. By nature, they're Krishna conscious. It may not be manifest, but you appreciate that. Or you appreciate something they're doing, and you respect their abilities as God-given. Even they, by Krishna conscious standards, maybe not acting spiritually, but you see they have many talents, or they have intelligence, and you appreciate that as Krishna, and that is their, well, this person has very good karma, they're very intelligent. Like people, for example, who are great athletes, so there's some karma, great musicians, great artists, great business people. So you appreciate that they must have done something in their last life pious, and they must have worked very hard to achieve some success. So you could appreciate that, because now today they're very successful. So don't you think if you were appreciating everyone, and you would be blissful, you would be happy, not depressed and frustrated? You would be, of course. Now, implicit in Prem Kishore's question is, but if I think, okay, so you could say, okay, well that's true, but if I thought myself lowly without any good quality, then I would be depressed. Well, the answer to this, and I've given it before, is that when a devotee thinks they're low, they're actually not thinking about themselves, but they're thinking about Krishna. And the more, so we have to try to understand this within proper context. When a devotee is saying, I'm low, I'm without good qualities, what's actually happening is sometimes we have to rephrase statements in a context that will make it more clear what's being said. Just like in some classes I taught that when Krishna says surrender, he's actually saying, just love me. So when we say, oh, that's what he's saying, just love me, then it makes sense. Okay, then I'm not afraid to surrender, it's just about love. So the same thing when we're talking about humility and I'm the lowest, and if we rephrase that and say, Krishna, I'm far from you, I want you. Krishna, I don't feel I have any love from you, but I'm hankering to love you. I want to love you. Please let me love you. Please help me love you. You see, when you rephrase it in that sense, then when you say, I lack something, it actually becomes a positive. The negative attracts the positive. So the more you're feeling, I lack, simultaneously, the more it's creating a desire to have Krishna. So if you look at it that way, then you see, well, if I feel that way, I won't be depressed, but I'll be hankering, and imagine I'll be hankering for Krishna, then imagine how good your rounds will be. Oh Krishna, I have nothing, I have no good qualities, and I want to be your pure devotee. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So it's a very positive focus. It's not a negative. So we see it as a negative because, in ordinary consciousness, if I think I don't have good qualities, then I just become depressed. All my friends have these good qualities, I don't have them. I'm worthless, what's the use of getting out of bed? Everything I do just fails. We think like that. So that's the mode of ignorance. And then you won't get out of bed. That's double mode of ignorance. Whereas in Krishna consciousness, when you say, I don't have these good qualities, or I have bad qualities, what you're really saying is, Krishna, I want you. And I've given the example before. If you say, I'm hungry, I think I may have given this example many times. I think it's good to give examples over because sometimes we may have not been paying attention to them, or we don't remember. So if you say, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. Okay, I'm hungry is a negative. That means there's hunger. But hunger is important because if you're not hungry, you can't eat, and you need hunger to be able to digest. And so you say, if you're hungry, I'm hungry. Like before we gave the class, I was hungry. And I thought, it's 8:30 in the morning, this class will go to 9:30, 10, I should eat something. So about 8:15, 15 minutes before the class, I went and got something to eat. And I was chanting my rounds thinking I should get something to eat. So I stopped chanting, thinking, well, what should I eat? So I was focused on, well, what do we have in the house? And then I went to the kitchen looking for something to eat, not meditating on my stomach. I was meditating on what's there to eat. You remember this example I've given before? So the hunger is compared to a lack of good qualities. I'm this, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm fallen. I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm fallen, I'm wretched, I'm unworthy. I'm hungry means I'm unworthy. I'm hungry means I'm wretched. I'm hungry. So hunger is not a bad thing, right? Because it's saying I'm wretched, I'm fallen. It's creating an appetite to surrender to Krishna. Because I'm wretched, I need you, Krishna. I'm hungry, I need to eat. You see the correlation. So then you're meditating on Krishna. You're meditating, it's increasing your desire. So when they say, the more they say I'm fallen, really the more they're saying I want Krishna. Right? So in that sense you wouldn't be depressed. Now, there's been a lot of discussion going on, and the next thing we're going to talk about is how to balance this out in our conditions so that we're not artificially trying to imitate these pure devotees. But at least I thought it was important that we understand something, and I'm not saying we can understand completely what is the humility of the pure devotee, but at least when we see it, we always have to see it as a manifestation of a very deep level of Krishna consciousness, and we have to imagine if we had that level of humility, we would be very ecstatic. Because pride is the thing which keeps us distant from Krishna, and humility is the thing which keeps us closer. So just based on that principle, if I have humility and I'm closer to Krishna, then wouldn't I be happy? Yes, of course. I'd be very happy. I would be ecstatic. So just meditate on this, always carry this little nugget of jewel with you. There's a deep ecstasy in humility, which is unknown to practically everyone, because everyone wants honor. Right? Donald Trump doesn't understand the ecstasy of being insignificant, of the ecstasy of feeling insignificant. Muhammad Ali, for those of you who don't know, Muhammad Ali was a boxer. His name was Cassius Clay. He became a Muslim, Muhammad Ali, and he used to say, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj used to preach to them after his career was over. He used to visit him in Los Angeles. So maybe he finally understood there's ecstasy in being insignificant, in being the lowest. Anyway, that's an interesting concept, but those in material consciousness can't understand that there's ecstasy in being the lowest, and thinking oneself the lowest. But at least as a principle, we should understand that's the lower we feel, the greater the ecstasy we'll feel. Now, the more proud we feel, the less ecstasy we'll feel, and the more we'll hanker for material honor, and that'll take us away from Krishna. So, I'm going to go back a little bit to Kush. So I was put this in context, and I was saying that a humble person can be very self-confident and dynamic and powerful. So we shouldn't equate humility with weakness. And then I gave the example saying you can forgive somebody, but you can set boundaries in your relationship, because it may not be healthy to be too close to someone. but it doesn't mean that you can't let go of your revenge just because you want to distance yourself. So then Kush said, so it's fine to forgive but keep distance. Yes, because forgiveness is bathing in pig stool or donkey urine. So anyway, we're going to end here. It's hot out here on this ledge, and I'm wearing a long sleeve kurta. So it's time for me to go inside and cool off. And we'll see you Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.